Good evening, and welcome to What's Your Story? My guest today is Dr. Jerry Hardison, Brown-Eyed Girl, Van Morrison, Betty Davis Eyes, Kim Carnes, Private Eyes, Hall & Oates, Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, Crystal Gale, Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, The Platters, When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, Them Their Eyes, Billie Holiday, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, Frankie Valli, I Only Have Eyes for You, The Flamingos. All are unforgettable songs about the human eye. Sadly, there are countless millions of people whose eyes are in danger of losing some or all of their sight. This is the story of a man who dedicated himself to serving his fellow man by helping to preserve the precious gift of sight. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hardison.
Jim, thank you so much. My pleasure.
Would you begin by telling our viewing audience exactly what you do? You are a
optometrist.
And what do you do in that field?
I've been an optometrist now for going on 40 years, practice in Hartford, as you know, and my training has been both undergraduate school and in optometry college. And the practice that I'm in, I do own. We provide full service care, and there's a high percentage of commitment towards our community. Our community is not the wealthiest community, so our service is certainly very broad.
You know, when I think of an optometrist in layman's terms, I think of, I can't see across the street. I need some glasses. I go to a doctor. He gives me glasses. There's so much more to it than that. It's the health of the eye itself overall. You do that, that's a part of your practice, is it not?
Oh, there's no question. If you're going in for an eye exam, you need to know it's more than just measuring for glasses. And we do a full evaluation of the outer health of the eye as well as the inner health of the eye. And that's all important because there are truly conditions that exist that you as a patient may know it's there or you have, but we discover it and then can direct you in the right direction to take care of that, whether it's a systemic health condition or a local condition of the eye.
Now, you said you've been doing this for some 40 years. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's the most advanced technological occurrence in those 40 years relative to treatment of eyes?
I would say it would have to be due to the use of laser technology within eye care, both for diagnostic purposes as well as treatment purposes.
Now, Doc, I see on TV, you know, call in and come and get these glasses and pick them up and, you know, without any kind of eye exam and things like that. I don't want you to step on anybody's toes, but it may be a little confusing for people. You know, looking at a television, and I think you've probably seen the commercials, come in, you know, you can buy your eyeglasses. There's 1, 2, or 3, and where you're all squared away. I have a tendency not to trust that. Am I on the right track?
Well, I think you have to understand our direction of acquiring care and acquiring commodities is drastically changing. So the internet is trying to jump on that or I should say eye care is trying to jump on that through the internet. And it is a hot issue now all across the United States. It's a hot issue in here in Connecticut as well. In fact, there's some legislation that's ongoing in the state right as we speak.
Legislation pertaining to?
To achieving or acquiring eye care outside of the office.
See, I didn't know that. I just learned something.
And while it's an important thing and it's an advancement, so much is missed. Because again, if you do not have an in-person evaluation, the technology is not there that allows someone remotely to provide that. So you have to be careful that you're not swayed by an advertisement that says, we can do your, quote, eye exam online, because the technology is not there yet for that. Will it be someday? I would never say never, but right now it's not there.
Take us back 40 years, Doc. Where did you receive your training?
Well, I had my undergraduate degree was from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Then I went on for a year of graduate school, and then I went for my doctorate degree in optometry from the Pennsylvania College of Optometry in Philadelphia, and graduated in 1978. Came right to Connecticut with my wife and young son, and been here ever since.
So tell us a little bit about the man, Dr. Jerry Hardison. Where were you born, Doc?
Born, it's kind of a hodgepodge. Born in Greensboro, North Carolina.
All right, all right.
Lived there for 4.5 years. My dad, like many dads, was transferred after the war to New York City.
Was he in the military?
He was, but he was transferred through his work after getting out of the military, and he came up and worked in Manhattan, and we, like many other thousands of families, went to a development on Long Island, and that's where I grew up. My friends said, I can remember, they said that I talked funny when I got there, but I have lost that twang.
That Greensboro twang.
But at least I don't have a Long Island accent.
There we go. I didn't lose one for the other.
And then so after college in optometry school, my wife grew up in Connecticut, and that's what brought us basically here, to be close to family. So.
Was that your ambition to become an optometrist? I mean, early in life? Did you?
Oh, no. I graduated in 1969 from high school, and I loved math, I loved physics, and I wanted to be a space engineer, as you can imagine. When I went to school, I realized that there were too many other much brighter individuals than myself wanting to do the same thing. And I maxed out in math and physics and realized that I really needed to try something a little different. So I bounced around through different health fields. At first it was going to be veterinary medicine. Then I decided not to. I worked on a farm for many years, and I didn't go that route. But optometry is unique because it does blend math and physics as well as healthcare. And so I've enjoyed it.
You have siblings?
I do have one sister.
Yeah. Are you the oldest, or you?
She's the oldest.
She's the oldest.
Year
Okay.
older.
All right. And you mentioned that you were married.
Oh, yeah.
And you have kids?
4 children.
4 children.
Mm-hmm.
And grandkids?
3 grandchildren.
All right. So how old is the oldest grandkid?
She's 6, then a 3-year-old, and then a 1-year-old.
So you enjoy being grandpa?
That's the love of my life right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, can't get enough time for it.
Absolutely. You know, VOSH, Volunteer Optometric Services to Humanity, has been operating since 1971. Would you please describe for our viewing audience exactly what this organization is and what it does, please?
It's an international organization. I believe there are somewhere between 25 and 30 chapters of VOSH within the United States. And there's also chapters in Canada, Central America, South America, and India. And so there are mission trips, basically all over the world, directed by a chapter from anywhere. Because you can have any chapter decide, okay, we're going to go halfway around the world and provide care for any given community. And that's the mission of VOSH, to provide care, eye care, vision care, examination of eyes, treatment of eye disorders that we can treat on an acute basis, and then provide glasses as needed.
How did you get involved with this organization, Doc?
Well, historically, if I go back to optometry college, my last year, here's a young man that really hadn't been too worldly at the time, and I decided, well, I'm going to go to Haiti for 2 weeks with my class and provide care for the Haitians. That was the days of Baby Doc versus Papa Doc, but still a very...
You're talking about the leaders of the country, Duvaliers.
A very brutal country, and very, very impoverished individuals. And so I went there for 2 weeks on a mission trip, provided eye care, and came back absolutely amazed at the extent of poverty and the extent of need for proper eye care in poor countries. And I knew at that point that, number one, when I would start my career, I wanted to make sure I was in a community that could provide care for those less able to acquire that care, as well as be able at some point to return to mission trips. And after my children were mostly on their way, I decided to go on a Bosch trip.
Now, this trip to Haiti obviously changed your view of the world, if you will.
Yes.
What struck you most? Just the abject poverty?
Yes, indeed, no question. And that, along with the intense interest and need that people had, and their ability to be very calm and courteous about having somebody with them and allowing them to provide care for them. In this country, most of us want things and they want it done right away and they don't want to wait for it. People are very, very patient, I have found, outside the United States when they have a real need for care. And I think if no matter where you are, you spend time with an individual and you can really feel good about that connection.
Now, on this trip to Haiti, what age groups did you see?
Those were all ages as well.
They were all ages?
All ages,
across the
from
board.
very, very young to very, very old. And people would line up and be there in the morning when you got there and be there when you were leaving as well.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I understand you've been to Nicaragua 12 times. Mm-hmm. Would you please give our audience an overview of those visits? What was it like the first time there, and what have subsequent visits been like? Okay. Nicaragua 12 times.
Well, in the 14 years that I've been going, in the 14 years I have gone 12 times. And my first trip, 2003 or so, my wife and I decided both to go, and she's not an optometrist, she's a teacher, but she did help in the optical clinic. We had no idea what we were up for. Yeah, we talked to people who had been, and the leader of the actual clinic is an optometrist in Torrington, and he's a former classmate of mine. So he had asked me to come on board because they needed some extra hands. And when you get up at 7, when you leave for the clinic at 7:30 in the morning, and when you get there, you see a couple hundred people already waiting, it's going to be a tough day. And it's long, but I was still impressed with the patience of people, the courtesy of the people, and the real thankfulness they had in us being there and providing care for them. And it was an exhausting week. There's no question about it. And every week since then has been exhausting. And sometimes when you get home, like any international trip, it takes a while to recover for various reasons. And especially if you're in a poor country. And there were times when that occurred. And there would be times where I would say, geez, I don't know if I can do this again next year. But for some reason, there's this lure that brings you back and wants you to return. And after 12 visits and 14 years, I have made many, many friends there, and it's really really nice to be welcomed. Of course, I stick out like a sore thumb.
No.
But it's really nice to be welcomed back each time you go.
I went on the Bosch website, and I was astounded to learn that worldwide that there's almost 1.5 billion people needing eyeglasses. That's an astounding number when you think in America how easy it is for most of us to go and get your eyes worked on and whatever it is you have to do. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of numbers out there. I'd say that's probably a little high.
Okay.
I usually go by a World Health Organization.
Okay.
But regardless, if you're an average would be 1 billion people, that's an awful lot of people that are visually impaired by refractive errors.
You got to break that down a little bit, Doc.
Refractive errors means they need glasses to see. They are what we would call functionally visually impaired or functionally blind. They can't see. And the more astounding statistic would be that 90% of those, let's say, 800 million or billion people
Yes.
are from developing countries. So when you go to a country like Nicaragua, which is still rated, I believe, as the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti being the first, you're going to see a lot of people that have needs for glasses. And we do. And the proof is when we're there, we see lots of people.
You know, I didn't connect the dots between needing eyeglasses. And like I said, I went on your website and I learned that the lack of vision translates to failing at school, health and personal issues. Those who cannot see are too often mired in poverty. I never thought about the connection between poverty and poor eyesight. Have you seen that in effect?
Well, I certainly see that when I go abroad, but I also
Yes.
see that every day in my own practice.
Yes.
You know, children that come from poor households and poor neighborhoods and haven't had glasses and are failing in school. And there's no question that proper eye care, and if they need glasses, will help in their education. And we see that year after year. You can follow these individuals. And when you go overseas, fortunately, for at least the communities I've been to, the children are not the ones that are most in need of the care. They're doing pretty good, but it's the adults that are. As you know, it's normal for people as they age, they lose the ability to focus. They can't read. And for a fisherman, that's disastrous. For a woman that enjoys reading her Bible or has to sew for a living, that's disastrous. And a simple pair of glasses for them makes all the difference. And that's what's unique about providing vision care. When people leave from our clinic,
Yes.
they leave with a product that we have given to them and turns their life around in many cases.
I understand that you've given 3 scholarships personally, yourself.
Yeah, these are all individuals that I was either introduced to personally in Nicaragua or some of the organizations that are down there have introduced to us. Two of the individuals were young women that needed assistance with school. After a certain age, I believe it's probably comparable to 7th or 8th grade here, in order to go to school, there is a fee that you have to pay. And if you want to go to a good school, it's more of a fee. So certain individuals were pointed out to me that were in most need, and we took a liking to them. The two young ladies that I mentioned had showed up 3 or 4 years in a row and had assisted in my clinic as interpreting or helping with patients.
Yes.
So you get to know people and know that they're well-meaning and well-intentioned. And one of them didn't continue her education, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but one of them went into nursing, which was kind of cool. And a third individual, a young man that a group of us and other colleagues and myself were introduced to while we were down there, and he was studying for his master's degree, and he has since graduated, and he started a number of businesses, and the one he's most proud of is he started a company that empowers women to create their own mini industries or companies, and it's just amazing. You have to smile when you know you've helped in that kind of endeavor.
You know, I understand that on one of your visits you brought 8 doctors and 44 students, and in 4 days you saw 4,500 people. Is that right?
That is correct.
And
that was our most recent visit.
And when did that take place?
That was the second week in January.
4,500 people.
Yes, in 4 days.
In 4 days.
Yes. When I had no idea how many people we would serve, but when I saw the number of providers, I was overwhelmed. I said, how are we going to manage the number of providers that are coming and then manage patients to see them. Because my first trip, there were only 5 doctors, and we each had maybe 4 students, and that's who all was there. This year we had 8 licensed optometrists, all from the United States this year. And not just Connecticut, most of them were Connecticut, but there were some outside of Connecticut. And we had 44 student optometrists. And they have been tremendous in helping our efforts. The students are so anxious to do this. They're so willing to come. They're so energized. And you can't help but be energized yourself when they are. But this year we had 8 doctors. Each of us had at least 5 students. And that's a tactical problem, a managerial problem on how to do that. But it actually worked really well. We were busy, 7:30 to 5:30, but you needed to because the crowds were there all day long. And we have a whole sector of the organization that just works on getting transportation arrangements to bring people, not just from the local town, but from neighboring towns. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, I understand this is, when you go, you pay your own expenses.
Yes.
So this is all out of pocket.
It is, yeah. The only thing, we do pay for everything because we pay a fee to go, number one. It's about $150. And that will allow us to, certain transportation from the airport is part of that, but it also provides a snack for breakfast and a lunch meal. But everything else, our airfare, our hotel arrangements, our dinners, any other food that you want to eat is all on your own. And you may say, well, how do students,
how do they
do it?
Yeah.
I have no idea how they do it, but somehow they do, and they love it.
You have said that when you visit other countries, that we are ambassadors for that country. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's exactly what I tell my students, because part of my job when I'm there is not only just to work, but I have to educate them and lead them and show them techniques and things of that sort. So we have a nice little conference before we start, and I let them know that we are ambassadors, we are guests in the country, and it is our responsibility to act appropriately, to act kindly, because anything you do will reflect one way or the other on you and your country. And it's important to remember that, and they do a nice job.
I understand that sometimes it could be a little difficult once you land getting out of the airport.
Yeah, we've had good times and bad times. We've initially when we used to go, we would send stuff down ahead of time in compartments, and
yes.
When you'd get the stuff, you realize that someone decided to look through the compartment area and take what they wanted. So that didn't work. So then subsequently we started bringing everything on our own, and many times you'd get there and they would open it up and say, no, you can't bring this in. It's not allowed, or whatever the reasons are, or they may even take some of your equipment. Fortunately, we have learned over the years that in order to visit the country, you must follow protocols. You need to have the proper authorization from the Minister of Health. But even if you get that, when you get to the airport, so much of the staff is, I would say, untrained to really do their job. They feel empowered to make decisions on their own, and we still have some problems, but nothing that we haven't been able to overcome.
Dr. Hardison, what do you personally gain as a soldier in this humanitarian army? What happens to you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's no question there is a real healthful feeling of satisfaction that you have helped some individuals. I'm not there to change the world, and I tell my students that as well. We can't necessarily do that, but we can do that one person at a time. And it's so rewarding to sit down with a person and be able to communicate with them and know that they feel comfortable with you as a provider and feel good about their encounters. So, and that's the rewarding part. Just knowing that you made a difference in somebody's life.
God bless you.
Thank you, Jim.
That's all the time we have for tonight's show. My thanks to my guest, Dr. Jerry Hardison, for sharing his story. Thank you for tuning in. Our stories are as different as each snowflake and are as beautiful and numerous as the stars. Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time, good night.